Hello and welcome to episode 2 of my new Top Gear review. Tonight I shall be reviewing last week's Extra Gear and then going on to tonight's episode of the new Top Gear. So, let's go. Extra Gear I felt was very well presented. Rory Reid and Chris Harris did a very good job overall. Chris Harris obviously knows what he's talking about due to his work on his YouTube channel. Rory Reid I haven't seen before, seemed a little bit nervous in front of the camera, but that's to be expected. But overall I think did a pretty professional job. The only problem obviously is when they interviewed Chris Evans, and obviously he came on just as loud and obnoxious and annoying as ever. But when they went on to this segment about how they made the new track for celebrities to drive around, I found that very interesting and thought that was a good addition. So overall, I think Rory Reid did a very good job. He seems to know what he's talking about, he can drive quite well, and it was pretty informative. He wasn't over enthusiastic, he wasn't too excitable, just the right amount I felt. And seemed to come across with a good natural speaking voice. However, I do still think it needs a Stig lap time. The guests they had, Chris Ramsey, I think they did very well with that. Again, a Mustang fan, something very close to my heart. I too have the Lego Mustang that they gave him, along with many others, as you can see. I seem to have a bit of a collection of Mustangs, including two real ones outside, a 1971 Mach 1 and a 2006 V8 GT. There was a little bit of amateur presenting in their guest segment, but it is their first time, and especially on a big time TV show, so I think they'll do better. Overall, their presenting skills were better than Chris Evans. And I particularly like Chris Harris's dry sense of humour. I think one that matches my own. For my last video, it's coming up to about 5,000 views now and 40 odd comments. And a lot of the comments seem to be the same. And that is that Chris Evans was loud, trying too hard. The chemistry between him and Matt LeBlanc was strained at best. And Rory Reid and Chris Harris would have done a better job. I personally thought that Matt LeBlanc did a good job. And it would be interesting to see Matt LeBlanc and Chris Harris rather than Chris Evans. But time will tell. So overall, Extra Gear was good. It was a good start. They did very well. The only thing I did find is that maybe it was a bit too short overall. 20 something minutes. I was expecting it to be longer. Maybe that's something they can look at in the future. Maybe they can extend it or do some extra segments, and I'm sure that their skills in presenting will become better and better. So, on to the main event. Episode 2 of the new Top Gear. Well, what can we say about tonight's episode of Top Gear? The introduction, let's start with that. Okay, first of all, I may be putting these on in a little while because my eyes are itching and they're still red. Not as zombie-fied as they were earlier today, but still so. Right, yes, the introduction. Pretty good, actually. Chris seemed to acknowledge that he's loud and shouty, and he seems to have taken that on board. Still a little bit of Clarkson in there, but not as much as last week. Therefore, perhaps he's shown that he's listening and indeed reading and watching people's feedback. Okay, the McLaren F1 piece, Chris Evans' little baby. Overall, not bad at all. I quite enjoyed that. Chris was speaking better. He wasn't as loud and angry and shouty as previously. Of course, obviously, he had to be loud and shouty in some parts because the car was loud. But something that bothered me, I did think at one point whether they'd green screened the side windows and the rear view window, and whether he was actually driving that Longtail F1. I don't know. I can't be sure, but it just seemed a bit, I don't know, as though he wasn't actually driving that fast. I may be wrong. I hope I am wrong. The 675 LT, I quite enjoyed that. That was pretty good. I liked the fact that they put Jensen in there. That was good. Simply because, although Chris was more natural in the way he was speaking about the car, he just showed that he's not really a hard driving car nut. He shows that he's interested in cars, but not that he really knows what to do with them. Therefore, there wasn't really any serious power play until Jensen Button got in the car. That was a good move. You know, I think that was a good decision to put him in that car. However, obviously, as Chris was driving around, or as Chris was being driven round, there was just utter terror on his face, which again only highlights that he's not very good in a fast car. At that point, I thought perhaps he's in the wrong show. However, overall, I thought there was a very good mix of madness and actual reviewing. So overall, I quite enjoyed that bit. Okay, now the Stigs intro. Again, I really don't think they should be doing the "some say" bit. You know, that was Clarkson's baby. Let it go. Do something else. They make reference to the old Top Gear, like the "and on that bombshell" bit at the end with Eddie Jordan. Ha ha ha. Not scripted at all. Eddie Jordan, not very good at acting. But do something different. Find another way to introduce the Stig. Now, Matt LeBlanc, still funny. Still enjoy watching him. There's somebody, I can't remember what, I think it was on the radio, they said that although you feel maybe he's not quite right for the show, something about him just thinks, it's Joey from Friends. They mentioned that on Gogglebox, actually. I've noticed that. He is very likeable. You can't really not like him. Now, the SUV challenge. Chris was actually quite good. Matt was funny as usual. Patrick doesn't like it. Eddie Jordan, not bad. Not bad. He seems to be trying quite hard. But when he's being natural, he's fine. Street race, very good. I enjoyed that. That was good. It's a little bit of madness and mayhem into something that I thought was going to be very boring. I actually thought it was pretty good having the musicians drive the car to show that they can drive as well. I thought that was a pretty good move. That's something they haven't really done before, so that was quite unique, quite new, and I think it worked. It worked well. One thing I did think that they should have done, because at the end of that segment, Chris did mention that it was a review of the off-road capability, but I wish they would have commented more on the interior of the car and the features of the car, which they didn't really do. And I thought that could have been something the musicians could have done. They could have come in and said, oh, they did say something about, oh, the seat's quite comfortable, but that was it. There was no mention of other features and buttons and what equipment it comes with, and you know, whether it was refined, whether it was a good ride overall. Just more, you know, comments about the interior of the car and the features of the car. The cocktail challenge I thought was quite funny. A little bit of cheating going on, which you expect. I think they did really well. The whole thing was quite good. It fitted quite well. I felt sorry for the car companies with splashes. And I see they covered cellophane on some of the panels, but some of it obviously is a bit cocktailed up. Now the guest, Damian Lewis, I quite like him anyway, so I thought he was quite a good guest. Again, this segment was a bit, not sure. The first car challenge bit was okay, good, yeah, enjoyed that, fine. The best car ever challenge, as far as I'm concerned, that was pointless. Damien Lewis chose a Mini convertible, fine, great. But then Eddie Jordan, how can you put Michael Schumacher preying on people's emotional side with regards to what happened with him and the state he's in now? So Michael Schumacher in a Formula One car, you just can't put that against a Mini convertible. That was a stupid comparison, shouldn't have even happened. That was a ridiculous segment, that. Overall, it flowed quite well. It did go on quite a while, but it did flow quite well. The three guests was, I'm not sure what to think of that, because obviously it seemed as though the person doing the rally challenge was the slowest one of the three, and I'm not sure why C6 Steve didn't take the car around. I think he should have had a lap time up there as well. He's a guest, so why didn't he have a lap time on the board? Thought it was a bit unfair, really. Overall, in that piece, Chris has calmed down quite a bit. He's not quite as excitable and a bit mad like he was last week. So he seems to have calmed down and settled into that role a bit better now. With regards to the Rallycross lap, I thought Chris Evans' commentary was a bit empty, a bit lacking. There was too many pieces of silence, and I thought he should have filled them more with commentary with regards to maybe the track, something they were doing, their facial expressions, just maybe a bit more. There was too much silence in there. So on to the second part of the challenge. I have very serious doubts as to whether they actually stayed in the tents. In the old Top Gear, they would have camped out. You'd have seen them wake up in the morning in the back of their Subarus and Volvos, and when they did the challenges in Africa before, you'd see them wake up in tents, and you could see that they had slept there because the looks on their faces, and it actually looked realistic. Whereas here, there was no evidence that they'd stayed there. You just heard a voice within one of the tents, and then Eddie Jordan stuck his head out, fully dressed, with his hair done, as though, oh, I've just spent the night in here. I very much doubt it. I suspect they were helicoptered out to the nearest hotel, and then some crew stayed around to make sure the cars were okay, and then they flew them back and did that tiny little 1 second piece with Eddie Jordan to make it look like they've actually stayed there. But I very much doubt they did. So I was a bit disappointed with that. The stealth challenge was a bit tame, but okay. It was alright. It wasn't brilliant, but it was alright. What made it funny was Eddie Jordan, acting like an old man, forgetting to sort out the suspension and just ripping bits off the Merc. I thought that was quite funny. Unfortunately, they took him out of the car. Again, Matt LeBlanc, the way he did that was quite amusing, but it would have been nicer to see Eddie Jordan destroy more of the car. I thought the hill climb was good at the end, the way they were on the edge of the track, and they actually had genuine fear, some of them, by the looks of it, or the way they were driving. I don't think, personally, I would want to be in a car going up there with Chris Evans, because I'm not quite sure he's confident enough to do it. But he made it to the top, of course, but I think Matt LeBlanc is showing himself to be a pretty good all-round driver. And the end of that piece was quite funny, the way they had him singing, and the bit of banter between, I can't remember her name now, from Texas, and Eddie Jordan in the kitchen, I thought was quite good. Seemed quite natural. It was quite funny. At the end, the way Chris sort of slung his arms up in the air shows that he needs a longer t-shirt. Don't really want to see his midriff. And that, I've already mentioned that silly little bit with Eddie Jordan doing the "and on that bombshell," sort of overacting. Not brilliant. But all told, a better episode, I feel. An improvement on last week. It seems as though Chris has listened to comments and feedback and toned himself down a bit. Like I said, he made that reference at the beginning, saying he's a bit more shouty. So maybe he's acknowledging that, people think I'm too loud. It's made me want to watch it again next week to see what else they come up with and to see if there's continued improvement. Overall, not bad. Enjoyed it. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. I'll be back next week with a review of this week's Extra Gear and then episode 3 of the actual main event Top Gear. In the meantime, please subscribe, like and share, and check out my other videos, and I'll see you soon. Thank you and good night.